you enjoyed that Mark 19 and Spitfire and Mustang?
I did very much. There's something about those aircraft that I think they're incredible to see on their own, so you can really focus in on what they look like and what they can do. But it's when you imagine a sky full of them, what it must have looked like, and how imposing that must have looked and sounded like. I would have liked to have seen it.
And as we go for now something else from the 30s and 40s, the Bristol Blenheim Mark 1. Manufactured in 1934. Powered by two Bristol Mercury radial piston engines rated at 905 horsepower. Flying today for you in the colour scheme of the 23 Squadron. So the Bristol Blenheim Mark 1, a truly unique British aircraft. As a type, the aircraft's history is long and formative and an important milestone in the history of British aviation. Designed as a small airliner in the early 30s by Frank Barnwell, the chief designer of the Bristol Aircraft Company. It was funded by Lord Rothermere, who named it Britain's first, and it proved much faster than the latest biplane fighters with a speed of over 300 miles an hour, and Rothmore promptly donated it to the nation. Barnwell then redesigned the aircraft as a bomber, and it became the first stressed skin aircraft with hydraulic actuating undercarriage, flaps and turrets accepted by the Royal Air. It was the fastest bomber of its day, became the backbone of the RAF's light bomber force. In fact, at the start of World War II, the RAF had over 1,000 Blenheims in service, more than any other type of aircraft. During those early years, the Blenheim bore the brunt of the daylight operations, whilst other bombers were switched to night operations. And it was that decision for them to mainly undertake the daytime operations, which meant that the crews of the RAF Blenheim paid a heavy price. Many Blenheims were not only lost to fighters but to anti-aircraft fire, especially when they were attacking ships. Even so, it was well liked by its crews, and Churchill paid homage to their bravery, comparing them to the charge of the Light Brigade. The Blenheim was pressed into many roles for which it was not primarily designed, such as long-range and night fighter duties. It became the first radar-equipped night fighter, and was the aircraft that got the first kill using that equipment. Operated for you today by the Aircraft Restoration Company. The first Blenheim project, a Canadian licensed aircraft called the Bolingbroke, was recovered in a derelict state and restored to fly after a 12-year rebuild by a small dedicated team led by a licensed aircraft engineer. It made its debut flying in 1987. Only to be destroyed by an accident almost a month later. Suffice to say, the accident was not due to mechanical faults. But determined not to be without a Blenheim, another airframe was found, and the same team gave themselves 5 years to complete the project, with the aircraft flying in 1993, and this is now the only flying example of the Blenheim, representing the light bombers of the early war years. Sadly, the aircraft suffered another accident whilst landing at Duxford, again through no fault of the aircraft itself. but it was dismantled with the ownership transferring to Blenheim, Duxford in December 2003. It was then decided the aircraft could be repaired, and work started with a team made up of full-time staff and some original and new volunteers. Initially, work concentrated on the centre section and fuselage, and it was at this stage that a feasibility study was carried out to see if the aircraft could be converted to Blenheim Mark I status. Fortunately for them, a Mark I nose had come into possession of the team, and it was realised that the production brake at the rear of the fuselage was the same for all Marks of Blenheim, so the decision was made to go ahead with the conversion. The conversion though did cause some headaches for the team, mainly the flying controls being in different positions for the British and Canadian variants, as well as the positions of throttles, pitch, carburettor and hydraulic controls. Now you can see very closely when the aircraft comes back in, it's got a very unique face, a very unique nose, and that is the Mark I nose. And that in itself has an interesting history. It was donated to the team, and it was obtained by an employee, Ralph Nelson, after World War II. He converted it to a car. That's right, the nose of the aircraft flying today was converted by a Bristol employee into a car. He mounted it on an Austin 7 chassis with the help of his colleagues who helped with that conversion. The car was battery powered, and he actually drove around Bristol in it until about 1957 when it was damaged by fire. Fortunately though, Ralph had kept not only that nose, but a considerable amount of interior fittings and most of the control systems, including the original seat. So these were donated, refurbished and refitted as well. A data plate on the nose revealed its build number, and that it had been built by Avro. Contact with Avro's Heritage Centre showed the aircraft serial was L6739, being issued to 23 Squadron on the 2nd of September 1939, meaning it fought throughout the Battle of Britain as a night fighter before being struck off charge in December 1940 after that. Further research reveals that the codes YPQ, and a photo was found on the ground of it running at Wittering on February 1940. So this has enabled the aircraft to be painted for you today, as you see in the authentic colours worn in 1939 to 1940, and fitted with the Mark I gun pack. Beautiful noise of those Mercury engines. They were overhauled in-house before being stripped down to their component parts and checked for wear and damage, and then reassembled. All the ancillary items such as carburetors, pumps, etc., and all those other things that make up the engines were examined and checked for airworthiness before being refitted. And the Blenheim flying for you here today made its maiden flight at Duxford on a successful 26-minute test flight in 2014, and after just a couple of amendments and adjustments, a further 2 test flights were carried out, and the Blenheim received its full permit to fly once again at the end of 2014, and it's been flying ever since. Flown today for you by John Gowdy. Now John has quite a history of flying some of these historic aircraft. He joined his local gliding club as a teenager, became an Air Atlantique pilot in 2002, where he then moved on to become deputy chief pilot with the Classic Fight, and flew a lot of the company's DC-3s and Dragon Rapides. In his own words, he grew up and got a proper job flying Airbuses out of Heathrow, but he has great fun flying these historical aircraft.